What happens when the man who built a fast food empire finds himself flipping patties under the rule of a power-hungry shift manager? Silas Vance leaned forward in his truck, staring out the windshield at the fourth location of his five-store burger chain. He'd opened his first drive in 8 years ago, working the grill himself, taking orders through a broken intercom and scrubbing grease off the tile floors every night. Now, each location pulled in solid numbers, but lately, something felt off. Reviews from this location had dipped. Comments about rude service and slow food were stacking up. Still, nothing specific enough to act on. His district manager, Jeremy, insisted everything was fine. Silas didn't believe in guessing games. He needed to see it with his own eyes. He grew out his beard for a few weeks, let his natural curls go wild, and added a few fake tattoos on his arms. He used a different name, Kenny, and had the district manager quietly arrange a last-minute trainee shift at the drive-in. The team at this location had never met him in person. Most of his hires came through local job fairs or were referrals. He stayed behind the scenes, trusting his store managers to train and lead. That morning, Silas parked around the corner, threw on a faded hoodie over his uniform, and walked in through the back like any new hire would. Inside, the air was thick with fryer oil and the buzz of morning prep. A tall, thin woman with sharp eyes and a tight ponytail stood by the prep counter, clipboard in hand. "You the new guy?" she asked, not looking up. "Yeah, name's Kenny," Silas said. "I'm Brandy, shift manager." "Don't slow us down," Silas nodded. "Got it." Brandy didn't waste a second. "You're on patties, just watch Joe and don't burn anything. Lunch rush starts in 30. Joe, a soft-spoken guy in his mid-20s, gave him a small smile. "It gets crazy here, just follow my lead." "You'll pick it up." As they prepped, Silas watched how the team moved. Joe handled the grill like second nature. There was a girl at the register, Delaney, who seemed to be doing triple the work, juggling orders while also handing out bags at the drive-thru. Another guy, Kyle, was supposed to be cleaning trays but mostly leaned against the wall scrolling on his phone. Brandy barked orders every few minutes. "Joe, those patties are overcooked. Delaney, pick up the pace." "Kyle, do something useful." Silas stayed quiet, flipping burgers and watching the tension thicken. By noon, the drive-through line wrapped around the building. A minivan pulled up, and the customer asked to customize 3 kids' meals. Delaney politely explained they couldn't swap out items for toys. The customer got upset. Brandy pushed past Delaney, leaned out the window, and snapped, "It's not Burger Palace. Either order off the menu or get out of line." The customer drove off in silence. Delaney's face flushed, lips pressed tight. She turned back to her screen and kept working. Later in the break room, Silas sat beside her. "You okay?" She gave a short nod. "It's fine, just a rough day." "You always get talked to like that," she shrugged. "Pretty much. If you're fast, you're fine." "If you're not, Brandy makes sure you hear about it." Silas nodded, keeping his voice low. "You're doing good, I mean it." Delaney blinked. "Thanks, it's rare to hear that around here." Back on the line, Brandy barked at him again. "Kenny, that's too much mustard." "Are you trying to waste product?" Joe turned his head. "He's fine, Brandy. I showed him the portion." "I didn't ask you, Joe. Maybe if you didn't slack off, the burgers would be edible." Joe stiffened and went quiet. That night after the shift, Silas sat in his truck, replaying the shift in his head. He'd built these restaurants to be a fresh start for people. A place to grow, not get crushed. He looked down at his grease-stained shirt and the name tag clipped to it, Kenny. Tomorrow, he'd come back again. Same disguise, same name. But this time, he wasn't just observing, he was going to push deeper. Something was off with this store, and he wasn't leaving until he figured it out. The second morning, Silas arrived 10 minutes early, parked in the same spot, and walked through the rear door just as the sun crept over the roof of the building. The back hallway smelled of stale mop water and fryer grease, the same as the day before. But today, he wasn't just another body on the line. He was watching even closer, listening, measuring, building a picture of what was really happening inside his fourth store. Kyle was already there, leaning against the prep table, earbuds in. He didn't look up. Joe nodded at Silas when he walked in. "Hey, Kenny. Hope you brought energy today. We're short again." Silas raised an eyebrow. "Who's missing?" Trish called out. "Second time this week." Brandy's already pissed. As if on cue, Brandy came through the swinging doors from the front, holding her clipboard tight against her chest. "Listen up," she said, voice sharp. "We're down a body, so you're all pulling double. I don't want to hear complaining. Kenny, you're on register until Delaney gets in. You can count, right?" Silas stepped forward. "Yeah, I can handle it." "You better. If I hear a single wrong order, you're back on trash duty." He said nothing, just walked to the front. Behind the register, the screen flickered slightly with each new order. The system was old, keys sticking here and there, but manageable. Customers began trickling in, mostly construction workers and parents with toddlers. He kept pace, entered orders cleanly, smiled when he handed out change. A few regulars gave him curious looks, clearly not recognizing him, but no one said anything. By the time Delaney arrived, flustered and apologetic, the line had grown to 6 deep. "I'm sorry, Brandy," she said, pulling on her visor. "Bus was late again." Brandy didn't look at her. "Clock in. I'll be watching how fast you recover." Delaney took over the register and Silas moved to the fry station. His hands moved on instinct, dropping baskets, salting, shaking. Steam fogged the edge of his glasses. He caught Joe glancing toward the back. "Where's Kyle?" Joe asked. Brandy didn't look up. "Bathroom." "That was 15 minutes ago." Silas wiped his hands. "I'll check." He walked down the rear hallway and opened the supply closet door. Kyle stood inside, phone in hand, watching a video with the volume low. "You good?" Silas asked. Kyle looked up, unfazed. "Just catching a breather." Silas kept his voice level. "They're drowning on the line." Kyle shrugged. "They'll figure it out." "Brandy know you're back here. She don't care. Long as she looks busy when the DM comes around, she lets us do our thing." Silas stared at him, jaw tight, then turned and walked back out. The lunch rush hit harder than the day before. Orders stacked, drive-through buzzed nonstop, and Delaney's headset kept cutting out. She juggled 2 orders while trying to explain over the intercom that they were out of milkshakes. Joe moved faster than anyone else. He slid between stations, corrected orders, even jumped in to wrap sandwiches when the line backed up. His shirt was soaked with sweat by 1:30. Brandy stayed behind the counter, tapping on her tablet. Occasionally, she barked at someone, but she didn't lift a finger to help. When the crowd thinned, Silas caught Joe by the sink. "You always carry this much," Joe exhaled, wiping his forehead with his sleeve. "Most days. I don't mind the work, but it adds up. You get home and you're just empty." "You ever talk to Brandy about it?" Joe laughed under his breath. "You think that'd go well?" Silas leaned in. "What's she got on the district manager that keeps her untouched?" Joe hesitated. "I don't know. Jeremy's barely around. When he does pop in, she pulls out all the charts, shows him numbers, talks fast, smiles fake. He leaves in 10 minutes, never sees what it's really like." Silas nodded slowly. "That always the case?" "Yeah, last month, a kid named Edgar quit mid-shift. Couldn't take how she talked to him. She told Jeremy he was lazy, he didn't even ask questions, just said good call and left." Silas's jaw clenched. "Anyone else left? 3 in the last 6 weeks, all good workers. Just couldn't deal with the pressure." Silas walked out of the kitchen and into the break room. The air was slightly cooler. Delaney sat at the far end, arms folded on the table. She looked up when he entered. "Kenny," she said quietly, "you see how it is, right?" He sat across from her. "Yeah. I do." She looked down. "I'm trying to save up. I want to go back to school next year, but I don't know how long I can keep this up. Every day I come in, I feel like I'm already behind." Silas didn't respond right away. Her voice had none of the frustration it did yesterday. Today it was just tired. She looked back up. "I'm not asking for anything, just, if you see Jeremy, tell him what it's really like, not the version Brandy feeds him." He nodded once. That evening, after they closed and the last order had gone out, Brandy called a quick huddle. "Decent job today," she said. "Kenny, you're not the worst. Maybe you'll last longer than the last guy." Silas stayed quiet. Brandy looked at Kyle, who'd finally reappeared for the last 30 minutes of the shift. "You're back on drive-through tomorrow. Don't screw it up." Kyle didn't respond. Brandy turned to leave. "Clock out and clean up." As the others moved toward the back, Silas stepped closer to her. "Brandy," she turned. "Yeah, I have a question." She raised an eyebrow. "Shoot. How long have you been shift manager here?" 4 years. "Why? You ever get feedback from your team?" She folded her arms. "They don't run the store, I do." "That's clear." Brandy's eyes narrowed. "What's your angle?" Silas paused, then stepped back. "Just curious." He turned and walked out. That night, Silas drove straight to his corporate office. He didn't stop at home. He pulled up staff logs, reviewed timestamps, break patterns, employee turnover. What Joe said checked out, all of it. He pulled up security footage from the last 2 weeks, watched Kyle disappear into the back, watched Brandy stand idle while the team scrambled, watched Delaney nearly break down when an order got messed up, and Brandy laid into her in full view of customers. By the end of the night, Silas had made 2 decisions. First, Brandy was done, effective immediately. Second, he was bringing in a new manager from Location 2, someone he trained personally, someone who believed in lifting people up instead of pushing them down. He sent the messages, signed the termination paperwork, and scheduled a meeting with Jeremy. A real one, not a 10-minute walkthrough. Tomorrow he'd show up again. Not as Kenny, not as a new hire, but as the owner. And this time there'd be no clipboard hiding the truth. The next morning, the sky was still dark when Silas pulled into the lot. He didn't park around the corner this time. He took the reserved space near the back entrance, the one labeled owner. For the first time in 3 days, he wore a clean collared shirt, no hoodie, no name tag. He stepped out, locked the truck behind him, and walked through the back door with quiet purpose. Inside, the opening crew was already moving. Joe was at the prep table, slicing tomatoes with headphones in. Delaney stood near the register, fumbling with the receipt paper roll. Kyle sat on an overturned bucket near the storage room, texting with one hand, sipping an energy drink with the other. Silas stopped just inside the kitchen, took a breath, and said, "Phone's away. Let's bring it in." Joe turned first. His eyes widened when he took in Silas's face. Delaney froze. Kyle didn't move until Silas stepped closer. "You're the..." Delaney started. Silas nodded once. "Yeah, I'm Kenny, and I'm also Silas Vance. I own this place." Silence swallowed the kitchen. Joe slowly pulled out his earbuds. Kyle stood up. "Wait, seriously. I've been working alongside you for the last 2 shifts. I've seen enough to know something's broken here, and it's not just equipment." The break room door creaked open behind him. Brandy stepped in, clipboard under her arm. She stopped short when she saw him standing there. "Who the hell?" "You can lower your voice," Silas said calmly. "You're done here, effective immediately." Brandy blinked. "Excuse me, you're not being asked, you're being told. I've reviewed footage, schedules, and I've spoken with this team. Your leadership violates every standard I built this company on." She straightened. "I've been running this place for 4 years, and in that time, you've created a culture of fear, burnout, and blame. You've threatened employees, refused to step in when help was needed, and tolerated behavior from others that should have triggered immediate write-ups. You're finished." Brandy looked to Kyle. "You're letting him talk to me like this." Kyle looked down and said nothing. Silas stepped aside and pointed toward the exit. "You can collect your things after the shift ends, but you're no longer part of this team." She narrowed her eyes. "You'll regret this." "No," he said. "But I regret not doing it sooner." She stormed out, clipboard bouncing off the doorframe as she passed. Once she was gone, the tension in the room didn't immediately disappear. Silas turned back to the crew. "I don't expect you to trust me just because I showed up for 2 shifts. But I want you to know this: what I saw here can't stay the way it was. Starting now, things change." Joe stepped forward. "What happens next? You're getting a new manager. Her name's Rhea. She's coming from Location 2. Some of you may know her. She was a line cook like you before she moved up. She believes in earning trust, not issuing threats." Delaney rubbed her arms. "So, we just go back to work like normal?" "No," Silas said. "Not until I've talked to each of you, one by one. 10 minutes each. No filters. I want to hear everything. What's working, what's not, what's broken. What you need." He gestured toward the dining area. "We'll open late today. Customers can wait. You deserve to be heard." They all exchanged uncertain glances. "I'll go first," Joe said. They sat at a booth near the window, the early light casting long shadows across the floor. Joe leaned forward, elbows on the table. "You probably already know most of it. Tell me anyway." He nodded slowly. "I've stayed because I like the work, I like the pace, I don't mind sweating. But for the last year, every shift's felt like a test I didn't know I was taking. No matter how hard I pushed, I never heard a word of thanks, just what I'd done wrong. Silas listened without interrupting. There were weeks where I covered 4 people's jobs, and when I asked Brandy for a raise, she laughed. Told me raises went to people who made her job easier. Silas kept his eyes steady. You're getting one, starting today, Joe blinked. What? You've earned it, and I'll make sure it's reflected in your back pay. I'll have payroll review your hours too. Joe sat back, stunned. I wasn't asking, I know. That's what makes the difference. Next came Delaney. She sat with her fingers clenched in her lap, voice quieter than usual. I've been trying to save up for tuition. I work doubles when I can get them. But the turnover's been so bad, I've had to train new people almost every week. Most don't last long. They get yelled at or ignored or blamed for things they didn't do. Silas nodded. I saw it. She hesitated. I had to lend Kyle my cash tip last week so he wouldn't walk out mid-shift. He never paid me back. Silas's jaw tightened. You'll be reimbursed, and starting next quarter we're offering tuition assistance to part-time employees. It won't cover everything, but it's a start. Her eyes searched his. Seriously? I've already signed off on it. Delaney pressed her lips together, then nodded once. Kyle was last. He slouched into the booth, arms crossed. So what, I'm supposed to apologize? Not interested in apologies, Silas said. Kyle gave a short laugh. Figures. You're the boss now. I've always been the boss, just not always present. That's my mistake. Kyle shrugged. I show up. I do what I can. If people don't like how I do it, that's their problem. You took money from another employee. You left your station repeatedly. You ignored direct requests to help. That's not someone who wants to be part of a team. Kyle's eyes narrowed. So I'm fired. Yes, he stood slowly. Whatever, place was falling apart anyway. No, Silas said. It was being held together by people who cared more than they should have had to. Kyle walked out without another word. By the time Rhea arrived, the crew had cleaned the kitchen top to bottom. Joe helped her carry in paperwork. Delaney showed her how the headset worked. Silas stayed in the background, watching it unfold. Rhea took her time with each person. She didn't bark orders. She asked questions. Listened. Adjusted. Later that afternoon, as the sun dipped low and the first evening rush rolled in, Silas stood near the soda machine and watched the line move. Orders came in fast. But for the first time, the tension was gone. Joe moved from grill to fryer, grim but focused. Delaney handed out bags with a steady rhythm, headset perched neatly. Rhea leaned beside the register, correcting something on the monitor, then stepped away to help with prep. Everything ran tighter even without Kyle, even without Brandy. As the last customer left, Rhea walked over. You built a solid team, she said. They just needed someone to stop stepping on their throats. Silas looked out at the empty dining room. I forgot what this place felt like when it worked. Then don't forget again, he nodded. I won't. The following week arrived with a quiet shift in the air. It wasn't immediate and it wasn't dramatic, but it was real. Silas returned twice that week, not undercover, not towering with authority either. He came in through the front door, ordered a coffee like any other customer, then took a seat near the window where he could see both the line and the kitchen. No clipboard, no laptop, just eyes and ears open. Rhea had settled into the role quickly, but not by force. She walked the floor with calm precision, adjusting workflows, listening more than she spoke. On her second day, she changed the way breaks were handled. Instead of stacking 2 people off the floor at once and leaving stations short, she staggered them, rotating in 5-minute blocks during slower periods. It wasn't a big move, but it meant no one came back from break to find chaos waiting. Silas caught her near the drink station later that afternoon. You've got them moving smoother already, he said. Rhea didn't look up from the monitor. They were already capable. They just needed someone to stop watching the clock and start watching the work. He nodded, then asked, any surprises? Delaney's sharper than her position. She's been fixing order issues before they hit the screen. I'm bumping her into training for POS troubleshooting next week. And Joe? Rhea tapped a few keys. He rewired the heat lamp himself when it shorted yesterday. Didn't ask, just did it. I'm putting him over night prep and letting him run the close. He's got the patience for it. Silas glanced toward the back, where Joe was checking inventory against the tablet. He say yes. I told him it's his if he wants it. He didn't even blink. Later that evening, Delaney approached Silas as he was wiping down a table in the front corner. She didn't hesitate this time. "I talked to the community college this morning," she said. Silas straightened up. "Yeah, they've got night classes starting next term. I can still work morning and mid-shifts. If I keep my hours steady, I can cover tuition with what you approved." He set the towel down. "You made that happen, not me." Her eyes were clear. "I didn't think it would actually be possible, but it is, so I'm going to." "Good." She nodded and turned to get back to work. That same night, Silas pulled Jeremy into a 30-minute sit-down. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. "You trusted Brandy's word too easily," Silas said. "You didn't look past the metrics." Jeremy leaned forward. "You're right. I let the numbers do the talking. I didn't follow up with the people. You're not losing your job, but I am changing how you do it. You'll be sitting in on crew huddles once a month, not just walking through, but hearing what they deal with. And I'll be checking with the shift leads to see if you follow through." Jeremy didn't argue. He just said, "Understood. And one more thing," Silas added. "We're hiring a field trainer. Someone who floats store to store, works next to the team, keeps things grounded." "Who?" "I'm offering it to someone tomorrow." The next morning, Joe showed up 30 minutes early. He didn't know Silas would be there already, sitting at the back booth with 2 coffees. Joe kept his posture neutral as he approached. "Something wrong?" Silas slid a coffee across the table. "No, sit." Joe sat slowly, brow furrowed. "You've been showing up early, staying late, covering for people who didn't deserve it. You never asked for a title, you just led by example." "That's rare." Joe looked down at the cup. "I just didn't want to let it fall apart. I'm creating a new role, field trainer, someone who moves between stores, shows people how it's done without barking orders. You'd keep your pay plus a bump, travel covered, and 2 days a week planted here to keep things balanced." Joe didn't answer right away. "It's a lot of moving," he said finally. "I've never done that kind of thing. You already are, you just haven't been paid for it." Joe looked up. "All right. I'll do it, but I want to train someone here to run close when I'm gone. You pick who, you build them up, that's the job." Joe nodded once, then stood. "Thanks." "Don't thank me," Silas said. "Just keep making it better." By the end of the second week, Kyle's replacement had been hired, a quiet but focused 19-year-old named Marcus. He didn't say much, but he didn't need to. He showed up early, took notes, and asked questions when he didn't know something. Delaney trained him personally. Not because she was asked to, but because she wanted to make sure the next person didn't learn the wrong habits. Silas sat with Marcus once during his second shift. "You like it here so far?" Marcus nodded. "Yeah, it's not bad. People talk to you like you matter. That's the point." The final change came quietly, but it changed everything. A locked suggestion box was installed in the break room. Not digital, not traceable, just old-fashioned paper and pen. Rhea opened it every Friday, brought the notes to Silas's office, and they read them together. Some were simple: someone asked for a fan in the prep area. Another asked for a better mop. Others were heavier. One note read, "I stayed because I didn't want to let the team down. Now I stay because I finally feel seen." Silas folded that one, slipped it into his wallet, and never spoke of it again. By the end of the month, customer complaints dropped by more than half. But more importantly, the crew stopped looking over their shoulders. They still worked harder than most diners their size, but they did it with a rhythm that came from respect, not fear. As Silas watched a new trainee fumble a burger wrap and laugh at his own mistake, he realized something he hadn't in a long time. A company wasn't built on systems or slogans. It was built on people and how they were treated when no one was watching. He stood, nodded to Rhea as she corrected the register without raising her voice, and made his way to the door. No speeches, no announcements, just the quiet understanding that he would keep coming back, not to inspect, but to remember.